Good evening, you're watching News Mongolian World. I'm your host, Dan Batar. And for top stories, Poland's president pays state visit to Mongolia. Pope Francis confirmed his trip to Mongolia. And 60 students will study in the Czech Republic on a presidential scholarship. And for the news, stay tuned. An agreement of cooperation was signed with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports of the Czech Republic, allowing 60 Mongolian students to study in the Czech Republic. We previously arranged for students to enroll in technical and vocational training. Today we signed an agreement with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports of the Czech Republic during the visit of the Deputy Minister. Within the President's Scholar Program, we have a strategic policy to develop mutual cooperation with the Czech Republic. We are preparing our youth to continue relations for the next 20 to 30 years, creating a bridge that will provide opportunities and support the aspirations of our people. Because Mongolian students are very diligent and hardworking, the universities of the Czech Republic will be happy to enroll students in fields such as the technology, agriculture, biotechnology, and cybersecurity within the framework of the scholarship of the President of Mongolia. We are confident that we will cooperate with our Mongolian partners not only in the field of education, but also in the field of research. At the invitation of the President of Mongolia, Khursokhna, and First Lady Bolorczycy, the President of the Republic of Poland, Andrzej Duda, and his spouse, Agata Kornhauser-Duda, will pay a state visit to Mongolia on April 24th through 26th.
During the visit, President Khursokhna and President Duda will hold official talks and discuss issues such as friendly relations and cooperation in international relations. Mongolian officials will discuss cooperation with Poland on major goals included in Mongolia's long-term development policy Vision 2050, the midterm New Revival policy, the food supply and security, and 1 billion trees campaigns, and the President's Message 2100 scholarship program. The presidents will also exchange views on expanding and developing relations in agriculture, light industry, infrastructure, education, and culture. As part of the visit, the government of Mongolia and the government of the Republic of Poland plan to establish an agreement on international road transport relations, as well as cooperation documents on trade, investment, science, archives, geology, and veterinary medicine. Andrzej Duda was elected President of the Republic of Poland in 2015 and was re-elected in 2022 presidential election. This will be the first visit of a Polish president to Mongolia since the visit of President Bronisław Komorowski in 2013.
Pope Francis confirmed he will travel to Mongolia in September, becoming the first pope to visit Mongolia, which is home to a cardinal and some 1,300 Catholics.
In an audience April 14th with executives and staff of ITA Airways, the airline that has taken the Pope on his international trip since 2021, he said that he will visit Mongolia after traveling to Hungary in late April and Marseille, France in September. During an airborne news conference on his return flight from South Sudan in February, the Pope told journalists there was a possibility that from Marseille he will fly to Mongolia. The Pope's trip to Mongolia will be strategic to the Vatican, which has strained relations with neighboring China, primarily due to apparent violations of an agreement between China and the Vatican, which outlines procedures for the appointment of bishops. In August 2022, Pope Francis named Italian Bishop Giorgio Marenga, Apostolic Prefect in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, to be the first cardinal based in Mongolia. Cardinal Marengo has served in Mongolia since 2003 and at 48 years old is the youngest member of the College of Cardinals. According to the non-official data, there are around 1,200 native Mongolian Catholics in Mongolia.
Discussion was held on political influence over media and journalism. The participants discussed the problems faced by the media and journalists over the funding and political influence issues and possible solutions.
Most of the media in Mongolia is not independent. For example, due to the lack of transparency of media ownership, lack of funding, journalist salaries and workload, the media sector is still subject to political influences, which means that freedom of the press is not ensured independently, experts emphasized. Therefore, media organizations must be responsible, ethical, and transparent in order to strengthen the independence of the media, strengthen multilateralism, and, on the other hand, fulfill the duty of the fourth governance as the voice of the public. These regulations are clearly stated in the press freedom law proposed by the National Human Rights Commission. Government organizations are free to keep information confidential in accordance with their own interests, which in turn restricts the right of citizens and media to openly obtain information about government activities.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here's the international news from our partner agencies. Russia sentenced an opposition politician to 25 years in prison. The European Union has condemned Monday's outrageously harsh sentence against the top opposition activist Kara-Murza, convicted by a Moscow court of treason for publicly denouncing Russia's war in Ukraine.
Thank you.
41-year-old Vladimir Kara-Murza was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Human rights organizations and Western governments have denounced the verdict.
The European Union, of course, was following this case of Mr. Vladimir Kara-Murza very closely. We strongly condemn the outrageously harsh sentence because he got 25 years in prison for politically motivated reasons. This is unacceptable. This is yet another demonstration by Russian authorities of the political misuse of judiciary in order to pressure activists, human rights defenders, and any voices opposing Russia's illegal aggression against Ukraine. This so-called trial, apart from being politically motivated, also did not meet the international standards when it comes to fair and public hearing by a competent, impartial, and independent tribunal.
More on this, yeah.
The European Union has called for the immediate release of all those who have been imprisoned and sentenced on politically motivated charges. Kara-Murza is an activist and journalist who twice survived poisonings he blamed on the Kremlin.
The European Union, of course, stands in solidarity with Mr. Kara-Murza and all the others who are politically persecuted, detained, condemned, or intimidated by the Russian authorities for the mere fact that they are fighting for human rights and trying to ensure some kind of plurality and freedom of opinion in the Russian society. And we call, of course, on Russia to immediately release all those who have been imprisoned and sentenced on politically motivated charges.
It was the latest move in the Kremlin's relentless crackdown on anyone who dares to criticize the invasion. Kara-Murza has rejected the charges against him as punishment for standing up to Russian President Vladimir Putin and likened the proceedings to the show trials during the rule of Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin.
A French court on Monday acquitted Airbus and Air France of manslaughter charges over the 2009 crash of Flight 447 from Rio to Paris, which killed 228 people and led to lasting changes in the aircraft safety measures.
Sobs broke out in the courtroom as the presiding judge read out the decision, a devastating defeat for victims' families who fought for 13 years to see the case reach court. The three-judge panel ruled that there wasn't enough evidence of a direct link between decisions by the companies and the crash. The official investigation found that multiple factors contributed to the disaster, including pilot error and the icing over the external sensors called pitot tube. The 2-month trial left families racked with anger and disappointment. Unusually, even state prosecutors argued for acquittal, saying that the proceedings didn't produce enough proof of criminal wrongdoing by the companies. Prosecutors laid the responsibility primarily with the pilots who died in the crash. Airbus lawyers also blamed pilot error, and Air France said the full reasons for the crash will never be known. Airbus and Air France has faced potential fines of up to 225,000 euros each if convicted. That would have been just a fraction of their annual revenues, but a conviction for the aviation heavyweights could have reverberated through the industry. While the court didn't find the companies guilty of criminal wrongdoing, the judges said that Airbus and Air France held civil responsibility for the crash and ordered them to compensate families of victims.
5022 jours.
For the last 5,022 days we have been working. We searched for the plane, we waited for a trial, we got trial, and we were waiting for an impartial judgment. This hasn't been the case. We are disgusted. What can we say about such an outcome? Nothing, since it's not our place to comment on a court decision.
Dénouement. Rien.
It didn't provide an overall amount, but scheduled hearings in September to work that out. A330-200 plane disappeared from radar in a storm over the Atlantic Ocean on June 1, 2009, with 216 passengers and 12 crew members aboard. It took 2 years to find the plane and its black box recorders on the ocean floor, at depths of more than 13,000 feet.
Here's the weather forecast of world's major cities. Well, that's all for today, and thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.